Right. Hello again, listeners, and welcome back to the Kotu Classic FPL podcast. So this is live, man. FPL is live this week. We've been waiting for it for the longest time. It seems like the break was really short for me, but yeah. Chama, nakala nak.
But yes, the game is back, but I'm still struggling with my last season fears. I don't know if it is fears or what. Yeah, but yeah, I'm very excited to see the game launch. Yeah, of course, I did miss the launching for the first time in a very long time because you had to update me and say, oh, like that was so strange. But it was the timing too because it was late night they launched it. Last year
Yeah,
I
I
can
think it was
remember
late.
they
Yeah, you
launched
guys
it.
were. Yeah,
Yeah,
you guys
last
were
last year
sleeping.
they launched around just when I closed work. I was going back home to the
Oh,
train
okay.
station, and then all of a sudden the game was launched, so I could do my thing. But this time was launched while I was sleeping, and then I didn't see anything until after we spoke, and then I saw your team. What is this? Did the game launch? Oh yeah, the game is launched. I didn't know, but
Yeah,
it's good to feel it. Yeah, I'm happy to see the game back. You see every
yeah,
player's price and stuff like that.
it's
People
exciting.
reactions.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, and the build up to the season,
Yeah.
the build up to the game this year was very interesting. I did watch the player price, like the live
Mhm.
one when Sam and what her name again? FPL guys, the FPL show guys, they were doing a live video,
Revealing, yeah,
about
the
releasing the
players.
price and
Yeah,
talking about it.
yeah,
I did watch that. It was so fun. It was a lot of fun. But yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited. How do you feel?
I mean, it's like I don't know. It was exciting because I was following it on Twitter. I saw that the price, the some player prices were coming out. And then I think I watched Andy's stream, and he just streamed the guys live, and it was exciting. Yeah, it's like that's what you need to start getting your mind back in FPL and going into the season. Start setting your targets. It gets you to start thinking of players. Okay, I want this guy. Okay, this guy's player's price. I don't really agree with it. How is it going to affect my team? All these things. But I mean, all in all, if you look at all the players, I think yeah, it's exciting. Like I
Definitely.
think let me just go into the segue because I came across this topic in on Twitter. I'm always there most of the time. So what happens is when the prices were released, there was a debate between the people that have been playing FPL for the longest time and the casuals, as they call them, people that are just starting out, and they were saying that the debate was that the older guy, the veterans are saying that it's not fun, it's not challenging enough because the prices are too cheap. So it's like it's the same as last season where we have cheap assets and then everybody has the same team, and it makes it easy because you can just captain one guy and then everybody has the same team, and the points are just there's no planning involved, no strategy involved. Compared to when if the players were expensive and then you have to figure out, okay, when do I get this guy? What's my team going to look like? How do I balance this? Okay, where do I? So what is your take on it? Since I consider you an FPN veteran at this point.
Am I a veteran?
Of course. Yeah, veteran. So what is your take on the whole issue? What side are you on, and why are you on that side actually?
uh For me, it depends. It depends is my answer in a lot of things. But because if you look at it, the pricing in categories, like you look at forwards, like the main forwards, they make them so expensive. Like Haaland is very expensive. For example, Kane for me is quite expensive. Like he's still not like challenging against Haaland, despite their 1.5 million gap in between. And then you look at other side, there are some very cheap players. Like you look at Gabriel Jesus, 8 million. So I like that they are pricing players high, but I don't also like that some players are wrongly priced, like by being priced very lowly.
Mm.
So that disparity is something that I don't like. So, but generally speaking, um, I just want I like the game to be more competitive. To be honest, I like it when players are very expensive and people have decisions to make. I like it that way. I don't like it the easy way. Like last season, it was not
It was
like
too
I
easy.
did
Yeah,
not do well,
yeah.
definitely, but it was not so much fun for me
Mhm.
because of the way how everybody kind of lean towards one direction. Haaland at 14 million, we have seen about 83% ownership already. I like that personally. I'm one of those managers who's ready to risk that kind of thing. So I kind of like that price. Even if it was 15, I'll be happy. Kind of. So yeah, I like the game to be competitive personally. And but I don't have so much problem with or I will not lean towards the side of the veterans or the side of of the
In the middle.
casuals. I think in the middle. I'm in the middle. Let me sit on the fence.
Yeah. I think initially when I saw the price, I was like, yeah, man, this is expensive. But then when you look at the whole like picture of all the players collectively, like you said, there's some players that are priced very cheaply. I think we'll get into this later on, like the Suns, which they so it makes sense because they look at the price and your points tally from the previous season and see how much you like what was your performance. Like Son 2 seasons ago, because of that, he was last season he was higher than Kane. I think about how many million? 11 million or 12?
Yeah,
I don't know.
he started 12 million last
12
season. Kane
million.
started 11.5. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was very poor last season. So therefore his price was brought down by 3 million. So now that's because he's a good player. So if he has a monster season this season and you jump on him very early, that means you're probably gonna have a good start. Probably going to have a good start in FPL this season. So all these things, I think, after when you look at the bigger picture, you understand. Okay, you know what? I think it's not too bad, honestly. Like how you initially thought it was. For me, especially, I was complaining. Oh man, they're too expensive. But yeah, looking at our popular players, those ones, the popular picks of last season. We can just go through
Yeah.
some of those prices and see like what their prices are. I think right off the top of my head, obviously, like the Haaland you mentioned, was priced at how many million last season?
He started at 11.5, just like Hurricane. They started at the same price, but in the end,
Yep,
yeah, that's his price this
14
season.
million. Yep, Salah is 12.5. 14 million for
Yeah.
Haaland. Haaland was how much last season when he came into the league? Was it
He started at 11.5, so he
11.5?
has a 2.5 million hike in price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
What
for
do you
him
feel about
it's
it?
justified. I think it's justified, to be honest. If it was 15 million, initially you would say, "Oh, it's too expensive," but when you think about it, you understand
Hmm.
that he in his first season he's had this much impact. So can you imagine the second season
Yeah.
where things are much settled for him? He would have probably be. I think I'll bet that he will be higher next season, probably 15 million. Yeah. So um, also looking at let's look at some of the players in the the premiums. You can call them the premiums this season.
Okay. The premium pricing.
Premium pricing. Um,
Okay, this is different as all players. Let's look at the players with price.
yes.
Okay, these are the premium players,
These
I
are the
think.
premium, yeah. So
So
Haaland is 14, Salah is 12.5, Kane is also 12.5. So usually in previous seasons, like the past 2 seasons, the highest I think was Salah at 12 million, right? So this is
yeah.
I think for me, in my playing FPL in the past few years, this is the highest I've seen two players. I mean, three players talk less of 14 million, but two players were like the highest was 12. Now you're having another player who's 2 million, 1.5 million higher than even the 12.5 million players.
Mhm.
So yeah, it gives us a lot to think about, and it's going to take up a chunk of your budget. But it's between trying to see which one is the mainstay and how do you balance which one leaves your team at the perfect time, which one comes in. So I mean, yeah, we have a lot to think about. Even though people think that there might not be a lot of strategy involved, but I think there should be. You can, like you said, you like taking advantages of all these, these small intricacies, how you bring in the players. But yeah, Salah 12.5, Kane 12.5, De Bruyne 10.5. But De Bruyne was more expensive last season starting than now,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. He started the season last season around 12-ish. 12?
I
Am
think
I
12
wrong?
million, yeah, 12 million, I think.
Yeah, he started 12 with Son. And then Haaland started at 11.5, obviously. Kane at 11.5 last season. Salah was the most expensive player at the start of the season.
12
Was
million.
he 12.5? Yeah. Salah maintains his price at 12.5 at the
12.5,
start of the season.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll talk about some yeah, let's just talk about the price rising. Rashford was very lowly priced last season. I remember 6.5. And you told me that
Yeah, okay, let's talk maybe a little bit more about Haaland thoughts. What
I
do you
mean,
feel about that?
I
I have not given my thoughts
there's
yet.
not much to say at this point, man. It's like
I have a lot to say personally.
the point about, for me, the point about Haaland is like
Uh-huh.
he's a permanent pick. But now we already know how many people own him. So the issue is going to be, when do you hop on and when do you hop off? Because that's where
Yeah.
your price tally is going to come from. If you're bold
Yeah.
enough to when to like see that, okay, they have an upcoming fixture against a particular team, and history has said that they don't do well against those teams. You understand? Then you can capitalize and bring in somebody else like a Kane at that point, like who has a very good fixture, and just do the hokey cookie and see. You gain a lot of points, but you have to be bold enough, and it's a risk. That is the issue. Can you if you can leave it with that risk? You don't want to be going behind the couch, and when you watch Man City play, then you're fine. So that's where the issue is going to be for Haaland. But I think if you don't go without Haaland in the beginning of the season, man, you are taking a big gamble. I don't personally, I don't think I'm up for it. What are your thoughts on him?
For me, generally, like you say, we only have, because for me personally, what I consider as premium is 10 million up.
Yeah.
That's just my baseline. So looking at it, you have four premiums in the game: KDB, who has a drop, Kane, Salah, and Haaland. So, and yes, we pick these premiums for especially for captaincy. So because of their reliability when it comes to giving points and stuff like that. And Haaland, definitely, he's a super reliable player to have in the game. But yeah, 14 million is a big price. It's a big price. I did some background check when it comes to points tallies, and over the last few seasons, players, how many points they scored to get this kind of pricing and stuff like that. If you look at Haaland, 272 points is still a solid point. Kane was not by far from him. It's 263 points. That is just 9 points behind him. And then look at a player like Salah. He has hit those kind of numbers many times, I would say. He hit 303 points as a midfielder. He hit, that is the highest, of course, in FPL history. And then he also hit 260 something points and stuff like that, around these 270 points, few times. But there was never a time that we would say, okay, are we going to pay the 14 million on Salah? Are we going to pay the 14 million on Haaland, on Kane? So this is the way I look at it. Look at it at this point. But of course, I also look at it from the point of view of the player like ownership. That is like look at Haaland, 84% ownership. So like when can we go without Haaland? That's the big question that I have. And can we? But another thing is, he's a striker. He only gets points for goals, which he is very good at getting, without a shadow of a doubt. He only gets points with goals and assists. Last season he got a lot of assists. I think he got 11 assists last season, if you look. But his goals, of course, he broke the record in the Premier League. But that did not even give him that opportunity to be the highest FPL point scorer for a season. There are many players who have scored more than 270 points. Yes, he can break that 36 goals again. But I don't see it as a given. As okay, Haaland scored 36 this season. He's gonna score 30. He's gonna score 40 next season. He's gonna score 50 the following season. Or every other game, Haaland is gonna score a hat-trick. And if Haaland plays a game and give me one goal in a game, of course he usually give us 2 goals or something like this. If he's gonna give me 1 goal, I don't want him to be my captain. Because at the end of the day, I want the captain to be the player I think he's going to score the most points for me in the particular game week. So for me, it is not like an automatic pick just because of everybody is going there with 84% ownership. It is not. Even if you go to my draft right now, I'm struggling to pick him, which is still early. Of course, I'm not saying I'm not going to pick him, but I'm still thinking about it. Why should I pick Haaland? That is the most important thing. It's not just because okay, last season he did that, and then he's become a scary player. For me, the fact that he's 40 million makes me happy. But actually, I wanted it to be, because even if he was 15, people will still go there, and then that's gonna cut there. Like, yeah. So just to give like a general viewpoint on Haaland, I am still tempted to go without him, but I have to believe that somebody can outscore him in a particular game week. I have somebody who can do it for this game week, because that is how I think. So yeah. That is my general reaction. So that 1.5 gap between him and Salah, him and Kane. For Kane, I don't think it's enough, because Kane is still a striker. Haaland is a striker. But Salah have that extra point for goals. Salah have that extra point for clean sheet. Haaland does not have those kind of things. So even if Haaland outscores Salah in terms of goals, Salah can still match him. That is what I believe. For example, if Salah scores a goal and then Haaland, okay, let's say Haaland gets a goal and an assist, and get the 3 points in the game, for example, in a game. Or let's go say Haaland get 2 goals. That is 10 points plus 3 points. That is 13 points. And Salah gets a goal, maybe in a game. Liverpool keep a clean sheet. That is going to be, let's say he gets the bonus point. He's going to be 11 points. That is going to be 13 versus 11. This is how I think about it. So if Salah is going to give me 11 points and Haaland's going to give me 13 points, like, and for 14 million, who do I want to captain? It's just my thought. It's not like I would prefer Salah in that case, but it's just food for thought. What will I do with the other 1.5 million? That is the important thing to ask. So it's always about the budget and how can I spend my money. But yeah, Haaland is not an automatic pick for me. He will never be. Like, no player will ever be in for me as far as I'm concerned. I'm always going to give a thought to it before I make that decision. But of course, he can be in my team and he could be there, like, ever present. But it's always going to be a thought, not just an easy decision for me. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it's just the because last season we learned that if you miss out when he's hauling, when he has his hauls, you can probably fall behind a long way. You understand? But for me, that what I've learned from last season going into this season is that the captaincy doesn't always have to be him. Because there are a few players that you saw that were bold enough, to have Haaland in the team and have somebody else. And they went with somebody else captain, and next thing you know, they are actually flying through the ranks. So it's all about like the timing of your captaincy. It doesn't always have to be him if you don't have anybody else to captain, or just put it on Haaland because it's Haaland. You can actually find good ways or better captain picks in those weeks where Haaland doesn't have a good week, which are very important this time around. I think we need to probably look at that and plan ahead. That's at least that's how I'm going to go about it this time around. So let's jump to the top players for each positions, and we see what the premiums this season. If we have any new premiums from last season, I can tell you for a fact that some goalkeepers, I think, not so exciting. But let's just talk about the goalkeepers.
Should I sort by price or by points?
Sort by points from last season, yeah.
Okay, by points from last season. So this was the points tally from last season. The top 8, something like that, top 7. Yeah. We have at the top Raya. Raya was the best goalkeeper in the game last season.
I ever had Raya before. So this is surprising.
Yeah, 166 points. Yeah, because he was having a lot of save points and stuff like that. But and Brentford, they are not bad defensively. They do get their fair share of clean sheet and so. But also he is very good when it comes to bonus point because he's a good passing keeper. Like his passing and stuff like that give him the chance to get that bonus point. Alisson was at the second best with 162 points. He's priced at 5.5 million this year. Pope 157 points. 5.5.
How much was he last season? Was it 5 million?
He started at 5 million, yeah, and then I think he rose to around 5.4 at some point. Jose Sa at 148. Ramsdale is the interesting one for me. Ramsdale and Pickford. Yeah, he's still at 5 million. Leno is not also a bad keeper, but like I would expect Fulham to I would expect them to regress because they had an exceptional season last season. Fabianski, I don't know if he will keep his place in West Ham because this is his final year of his contract. He's 38 years old.
Yeah. So, but keepers have a very long lifespan. So how old is he?
He's 38 now, but he's the final year of his contract. I'm not sure if they will offer him a new contract.
38 years old. I would never guess that. Wow, okay.
Yeah, and then they have Ariola, who is also a World Cup winner with France. He used to be a top keeper, played for Real Madrid, PSG, and stuff like that. I think maybe this is his chance for him to, claim that number 1 or stuff like that. Because like Fabianski has been there for a long time, but now he's too old. I think it's about time they move him on and make him a second choice.
Okay, move on to the defense.
Defenders. Let me go to
yes.
defenders.
At least we're getting into some excitement. Of course, Trippier, even though he finished the season not so strongly, but he started off the season last season really, really fast. Like everybody was, getting Trippier in at the right time. 6.5. He started off at 5 million or so, if I can remember correctly. Might be wrong.
Yeah, he started off at 5 million last season.
Yeah,
and then rose
to 6 million or even more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben White is a popular option at 5.5 now. I'm not sure how much. I think last season he was at 4.5 or so. I think it was
4.5. Yeah, he was the cheap. He was the cheap one in the Arsenal defense. In the later stage of the season.
The exciting, the not I'm not sure whether it's exciting or surprising one.
But before you go to Clean, what do you think of Ben White? What price
I'm
rise?
not
He
really.
rose from because
Okay,
he's the most expensive Arsenal defender.
wow,
5.5.
really?
You haven't yeah, that's why he's
I,
interesting. 5.5. Gabriel is 5, Saliba is 5, Zinchenko is 5. And then Ben White, out of all the defenders at Arsenal, he's the one they price the highest. And then he might even lose his place
yeah,
if you
his position.
consider
Yeah, yeah.
Julian Timbers is coming, and then he is not that attacking of a defender. So yeah, I think that was a mess from FPL to price him at 5.5. They have like nobody's gonna get Ben White. Like
To be honest,
what's
I wasn't. I didn't even think about it because I wasn't going to get him. To be honest, I thought it's the right back position. It's not his natural position. He's more of a centre back, even though he's good on the ball.
yeah.
But you have they have a few right backs.
Mm-hmm.
Tomiyasu is there, even though I think he lost his position. But still, I feel
Yeah.
like they have a lot of options there, and his place is not really it's not a given in that team. Like you said, they have Timber coming, they have Gabriel, Gabriel. I think is one of the key defenders. Saliba is also signing a new contract soon. So where is Ben
He
White going to
signed.
fit?
He already signed.
He
Yeah.
already signed. Yeah. So I mean, Arsenal defenders, to be honest, I think Zinchenko, Gabriel, Saliba, those are the ones I would pick, even ahead of Ben White.
Yeah.
Coming to
Yeah.
Trent,
Yeah.
so this price point, some people are of the belief that he was supposed to be from last season because the previous 2 seasons ago he had a really good season and he was at
Mm.
7 and they were thinking he was going to be 8, but he was at 7.5 last season. So now he's finally at 8. What do you think prompted them to increase his price to 8 million? Because 8 million for a defender is very high. It's probably like a pricing for a midfielder. So
Mm.
what do you think justifies his 8 million price?
Yeah. You can see his ownership currently 34% of managers.
34.8%.
Yeah, it's already that. So, like for me personally, I believe you should make prices based on needs of people. Like even Haaland, we already talk about him. That's why I say I like the so at what price can you make Haaland that it will be a 50-50 decision for people? He will drop to 50%. That is the best way to
Oh,
price
okay.
these players.
Yeah,
For
that's
me, yeah. So Trent, if you make him 6 million or 6.5 million, because
everybody's
last
gonna
year
use it. Yeah.
he dropped in point. He's gonna be 100% ownership,
Yeah.
and that
Yep.
makes the game really, really bad, in my opinion. I think that is. I think you even agree with me on that. So 8 million for Trent, like his season did not warrant that, but the urge for people to own him in their team, like make him that attractive, that attractiveness for him, for people to get him, is why I think 8 million, even 8.5, you would have seen similar thing for him. So yeah, I
And
don't
what?
like it
Yeah.
because he's definitely going to be in my team. So from a selfish point of view, I don't like it, but from a general point of view, I think it's a good way to price him.
Okay. Since you brought in that aspect of it, you think price point should be as a kind of percentage of ownership. At what price point do you think people will start questioning whether they should actually look for somebody else to replace Trent in their team?
uh
9 million.
and what so maybe like for me
Mm. Yeah.
like maybe let me answer for myself, because that depends on because other people will look at Trent and then they will talk about how bad he is defensively, and then maybe that influence their decision to pick him in FPL. There are people like that out there, and how bad Liverpool are defensively, they don't keep clean sheets, so I'm not gonna keep Trent. There are people who think like this, so different type of people think different ways. So for me personally, the way I look at it is always about the points, right? I'm not looking about what is Liverpool good at, what is Trent giving me, like in terms of underlying numbers and stuff like that. So when it comes to the underlying numbers with him, he's unrivaled because he's a defender, but now he's playing as a midfielder for a team that can be good defensively. They have not been great last season, but it's a team that can be. So all the avenues for FPL points and to maximize those points is there for Trent. Clean sheet, if Liverpool keep it, he benefits. When he creates chances, he's one of the best creators in the Premier League. Like last season again, he created almost like more than 20 big chances, if I'm not wrong. So maybe it's only about two players who created more big chances than that was KDB and Bruno Fernandes. So if a defender is doing all this kind of stuff for you,
You should get
and
midfielder
then
points.
also he is worth a lot. So if he was a midfielder, I think people will still go for him at around 8 million. So for me, I don't know that maybe he has to be more than 9 million for me to be thinking, is it really worth it for
Yeah.
me in my team? Yeah, for
Okay.
me personally.
Moving it along, we can see that they have we have four Newcastle defenders in this top 10 of high scoring defenders. You can see
Yeah,
it's surprising to me because at some point last season, most of us own at least a Botman or a Shah. Trippier was obviously in our teams, most teams. Shah and Botman
yeah.
were also there, so I'm surprised. What are your thoughts on Newcastle defenders last season and then compare them to this season where they're going to play a lot of competitions, Champions League included?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, they are improving their team with the signings that they have, and so that will improve them defensively. I think Tonali, of course, even though he's not a defender, but with him being in the team, that makes them even more, more of a steal, to break and stuff like that. Because Tonali is a good working midfielder, even though he's creative going forward, but he's also a
Hard
good
work.
hard worker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that will add some value to their defensive numbers. And yeah, I don't know Bon. For Bon, he did very well, but maybe they might be thinking about a left back. That's my thinking. But yeah, defensively, I think they are underpriced based on what they did, especially Shah and Botman, based on what they did last season. But again, uh, uh, some of the pricing they are funny. I think Botman should have been at least 5 million, and I think Scar should be about 5.5 million. But maybe that makes them more attractive compared to Trippier, because 6.5 for Trippier, and then you look at the other defender, because you cannot take more than one Newcastle defender. We consider in all the competitions they are going to play in this season. So maybe one will be the number you take. So because of the difference in their numbers, like the values, so maybe that might tempt people to say, okay, maybe I will go for Botman instead of Trippier, because you have a 2 million gap there. So if they keep the clean sheet, they come back, they're gonna all benefit from it. So yeah, that's how I see the Newcastle one. But Trippier price, I think is worth it, but 6.5 is a bit hefty.
Okay. Let's move on to the midfielders quickly.
Midfielders.
Yeah, this is where the bulk of everything is, but we'll try to be as brief as possible. It's gonna be
Okay.
so we have last season. Wow, this is interesting. Last season, Salah obviously had the highest points in in midfielders, and it's funny because he's supposed to have had a bad season according to most people.
Yeah,
Even myself, I consider Salah to be not up to his usual self, but he
definitely.
is still having the highest points for midfielders. And a surprising one is Odegaard. At 212 points was last season. I mean, I'm surprised. Then you have Rashford, Saka, Martinelli. So the top three in the top five are actually Arsenal players and Arsenal midfielders. And at some point last season,
3 of the top 5. Yeah.
three of them were in most teams. Maybe a combination of two. I don't know how, but like they were always a combination in our teams.
I had 3 at some point, all of them,
You see,
but I
yes,
don't
I'm
know.
sure. So, what are your thoughts on these top midfielders? Let's say top 10 right now that we're showing, top 11.
Yeah, start with Salah. I didn't say anything about him. Did I? Maybe. Yeah, 239 again to look at the points. You see, because everybody thought he scored less than 20 goals. How many goals did Haaland score? 36. Haaland scored 17 goals more than Salah. How many points did he have more than Salah? Just look at that gap.
Mm.
Salah was on 273, 239 is Salah. That is about 30 points, 34 points gap. It's a lot, but looking at 17 goals in between,
It
it's
should be
not that.
more. You think that it will be more,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So if Salah had a normal season, let's say Salah scored 5 or 6 goals more, or the penalties he missed, the 2 penalties he missed, you add it to that, he will still be about 13 goals behind Haaland, but maybe very close to him when it comes to the
In
FPL
points.
points. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, you see, this is why that kind of thought you have to do it.
Hmm.
Don't just make it easy on yourself. But yeah, I think his price 12.5, 1.5 below Haaland is good. And then speaking of the Arsenal players, let me just talk about the Arsenal players. Odegaard. He was a player that I find so hard to pick, but he ended up as the highest scoring Arsenal midfielder, which is very funny. Because the easier one for me was always Martinelli, because he was the one who was always getting
The
behind, and he
numbers,
was the
yeah, the
cheapest one
stats.
at 6 million. Yeah, that's why he was always the easy pick for me. I'm sure if he did not have his injury at the end of the season, he would have outscored both Salah, both out Odegaard and Saka.
Exactly.
So it's close between him and Saka, just 3 points. Saka is always the darling because of Salah. Saka is the main pick, but I think they are underpriced this season. To be
I think so
honest,
too.
they
I think
are.
they are on the price. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Martinelli, I'm not happy that he will go all the way to 8 million, even though I still feel that it's underpriced. But he could have been cheaper too.
No,
But Saka
I feel Martinelli and Saka should be maybe a 9 million.
on par, right?
Yeah, they should
On
be 9
par.
million. And then Odegaard I don't mind because I think last season he took the responsibility to score goals because when the team was not doing well. But if you look at his position, I think Saka and Martinelli are always in that box, around that box. They should have
Yeah,
scored
yeah,
more.
yeah.
You know? But
Yeah,
yeah,
if you like, if that is your thing, yeah.
I feel
If
like
that is
Saka
your
will
thing,
just
like,
10 million.
yeah, yeah. If that is your thing, where you are looking at the players who are getting into the box, getting into these goal scoring chances,
Yeah.
then it's difficult to pick Odegaard, which is always my thing, right?
Mhm.
But Odegaard, yeah, he
Most of his
scored a lot of
goals,
goals,
the goals were
but some
kind
of
of
them were
like
coming from long
long
range.
range. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like shots and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Yeah, so those
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
things, it's difficult to actually bank on them
To
all the
rely
time.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not. Yeah, but he's a good player to be honest. And my man
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandes and Rashford, my Man U players, they make an appearance.
Yeah, Rashford 6 million, 6.5 million to 9 million.
nine
That's a
million.
huge, huge,
Even
huge.
more expensive
But
than
yeah,
Bruno Fernandes. Can you imagine that?
yeah.
Bruno at
But don't
eight point
forget,
five.
yeah.
Wow.
But don't forget, before last season, he was 9.5.
Yeah.
Last season they dropped him to
To 6.5.
6.5. And that
Yeah.
was it because
It was
the
big.
previous season, what happened? He had a bad season, and then everybody, even some Manchester United fans did wrote him up and say
Yeah.
he should be sold,
Mhm.
and then he came, and now he's at the price he deserves. This is the price he deserves, and I don't know if he's a player I really rate high, so I would not be surprised even going with him in my draft. I think he's there right now currently. So yeah, 9 million is his right price. So not much to say. Bruno at 8.5 is interesting.
Is too cheap, man. I will tell
It's
you as a
very
Man
cheap.
U fan, if we sign, unless we don't sign a good striker, if we
Uh-huh.
sign a good striker, Bruno Fernandes is probably should be like a 10 or 11 million, probably even 12. Because if
Yeah,
you see the amount of chances the Man U players, especially even Rashford and them, the amount of chances that Bruno creates for them is a lot. Like a top
yes.
striker will probably score all those goals. But so it depends if we sign a top striker. That is the whole thing. Like what our transfer window is going to be like this season. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
yeah. And Bruno, yeah, let me just say, like he's really cheap because last season he did not score a lot of goals. We not
Yeah.
forget last season, the first half of the season, there was Ronaldo. Like he was on the penalties was not coming for United,
Mhm.
and Ronaldo was on pens, and Bruno had that. Is it Bruno? Is it Ronaldo about the penalties? But now I think it's clear that Bruno is the
It's
penalty taker
Bruno.
for Manchester United.
Yep.
You add that fact, which was his main appeal the season before.
That
Like
was
when he has his big season, the main appeal for me was his penalty because that season I think he scored 18 goals. 50% of them were penalties. 9 goals out of the 18 were penalties. And then we all know he's creative. Last season, Bruno created the most number
the
of
most
big
chances.
chances in the
Yeah.
league.
Yep.
Most number of big chances in the league. So that's what I was about to open to see what was the exact number again, just to code that number. KDB finished second to him, and then you had Salah, and then you had Trent, and then you had the other players. Yeah. So yeah, Bruno at 8.5 is underpriced, and people only 23% own.
I'm
But
surprised.
yeah,
It's going to be interesting to see which one people prefer, like Rashford or Bruno Fernandes at this point. But yeah,
yeah,
honorable mentions Pascal Gross, your guy. This guy is the utility guy for Brighton, and he's there as one of the top scorers for points last season, which is interesting to me.
150. Yeah.
Eze and then Almiron also make the top 10 for best performing players last season. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Just to repeat, Bruno created 32 big chances last season. 32. That is a crazy number. Like 32, KDB created 31. Then you have Trent 24, Trippier 20, Trent 26, Trippier 24, and Match. Match. He's not in
That's
in the
also,
points.
yeah,
Match.
Match is just
Where are the Brighton players? They
there's
are
only
not
one
even
here in
in
the
there.
top 10. There's only one. I'm
Gross.
surprised it's
So
still in there.
Gross
Yeah,
outscored
that's what I'm
Match,
telling you. Yeah,
McAllister,
all of
and
them.
Mitoma.
All of them.
Seriously, let me see.
Yeah,
Let
all
me
of
see.
them.
Let me see where
And
these
it's just
people
the
are.
name. It's like the stats don't show those things. Like there's just a name. People or the popularity of the player at some point. Maybe at a particular point
Yeah,
in the season, the player's popularity. But maybe in the beginning of the season when Cross was really hitting those numbers, he actually accumulated a lot of points. So
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And consistency is key too.
Mm-hmm.
This is a code that I think one of the FPL legends, he won it before. Simon Match, another match. Simon Match. I don't know if you know him. He's part of the fantasy football scout. He said the biggest differential in FPL is consistency. Be consistent. Like if you look at this, you look at everybody know last season it was all about my March, it was
Yeah.
about Mitoma, McAllister. But at
Mitoma,
the
yeah,
end,
and McAllister, yeah.
Cross, who was very consistent playing every game, he's the one who outscored all those players.
Yeah.
So these things,
And
we don't usually pay too much
yeah,
attention to it, but they are important, right? Because nobody was picking Gross last season.
nobody was
We
speaking.
were picking Mitoma because
The
the
appeal wasn't
yeah,
there, and he was all over the place. He was sometimes he played in defense, sometimes he played in 10 and
midfield.
midfield, everywhere. So it's like the utility player was one that outscored all of them.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving along. Let's go to the strikers, the forwards, not the strikers, forwards. You can call them forwards. I don't
Forwards.
call them strikers. Yeah,
Yeah,
obviously,
strikers.
the this doesn't. Yeah, that Haaland, Kane,
Uh-huh.
Tony like had a good season last season, man. I think he was
Yeah.
one of the top strikers. Given that he played for like you can say one of the smaller teams in the league, he did exceptionally well. To be honest, Watkins also had a resurgence when they changed coach. When good evening, what's his name? what's the
Good
coach?
evening.
What's the coach's name again? Unai Emery. When
Unai
Unai
Emre. Uh-huh.
yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see Aston Villa this season, because I feel like they have a good coach now and they believe in the coach's vision. So it's going to be a difficult team to play against, man. Honestly, Wilson, our favorite guy, it was Wilson against what's his name again, the new striker,
Isaac.
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 So yeah. So the thing is now Isaac is there, and then they thought that Isaac was going to be the new golden boy, but Wilson refused to die, man. I mean, it's like Isaac's introduction to the team made him like lit a fire in him, and then he was like another striker. He did well,
Mhm. Yeah.
Solanke, Gabriel Jesus is also in the top. I think Gabriel Jesus has a good start to the season, but then after the injury, he kind of trailed off a bit. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
your thoughts on these players?
Hmm. Haaland is Haaland. Kane is Kane. He just don't give us a lot of points. But yeah, like I say, Tony was a very good player for us, for managers last season. But then he get the ban and stuff like that. Now he will be out for a very long time. We
He's
don't
out.
know
Yeah,
when
I think
actually.
he'll be
We
back
know when he's
in
coming back.
January or so.
Yeah, around next year now. I don't know the exact time, but next
Yeah,
year he will
I'm
be
not
back.
sure. Maybe
Wilson 8.8 million. I think it's a bit expensive because of the two
it
strikers
is a
that they
bit
have at
expensive. Yeah,
Newcastle.
it is a bit expensive. I think
Because
even
you don't know, like there's the uncertainty of who is starting there, and also
two
there's the
players.
uncertainty
Yeah, two
of
strikers.
his injury record. So I don't think 8 million is the price for him. Watkins to 8 million is a bit
It's a bit heavy.
hefty. Maybe
It's like
the
last season we were spoiled for choice, right? We had all these cheap strikers, and you could take your pick. Which one is on form. You just bring them in. This time around, it's like there's a gap. You can see Kane and Haaland, and then you have 14 million, 12 million, and then you drop all the way down to 8. There's no what's his name again? What's the Leicester striker? What's his name?
Vardy.
Vardy, who was that gap? It was around 10 million. You see, so you could see there was a gap. Now there's a whole 4 million or 3.5 million difference between 12.5 Kane and then Tony. Gabriel Jesus is also there, 8 million. I think it's unchanged. Oh, there's Mitrovic too, but
Yeah,
he's also less. He's a 7.5. Yeah, I don't
Mitrovic
know.
to
Do you
8.
have another striker
Yeah.
that's like in the 10 million range?
No, we only have two. Just these two.
Just these two strikers now. That's interesting.
Just these two. Try. If you look at the price, let me see. Just look at the price. The price point. After them is 8 million. Yeah,
That's
Jesus
it.
and
Wow.
Co.
Okay.
Hey, yeah.
Like
So that's
I feel that
interesting.
I feel the league needs more strikers, man. We need like because for me, I like seeing my striker. Even though I know when it comes to points, the midfield is the better option to go. But I like seeing like strikers, with a lot of goals in the league. So hopefully
Yeah.
between now and the end of the season, we have a lot of transfers that bring in new strikers. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, let me ask you a question before we move to like the gap between Haaland and Kane, and then the rest. For example, Haaland, because Haaland is the popular one. I think Kane, he even though some people are gonna pick him, but it's gonna be very few. Like it's just gonna be the Kane lovers who are gonna pick Kane, and then because the price is not different too
It's
much with
difficult to have
Haaland,
both of
just
them in the
1.5.
team. It's going to be
Yeah.
difficult.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So now looking at Haaland and the rest, Kane is not part of the rest. That is 6 points gap. 6 million.
6 million.
Six
That's
million.
a lot, man. That's a lot.
That's a lot of money. So
Yeah.
at what points can they get? What margin of points can they get between themselves and Haaland that you will get those players over Haaland? It's difficult to answer this question because you have to consider the captaincy. Because if you consider the captaincy, okay, you're not gonna captain this player, but you're gonna captain another player at the end of the day. Like, at what point margin do you think that you might say, okay, Jesus, like you have one option, Haaland or the other or the rest, just this option. Like let's ignore every other aspect of FPL, just these two one option, Haaland and the rest of players. At what point margin gap do you think there should be for you to say no? I'm not gonna go Haaland. I'm gonna go others. It has to happen. Like you can say, for example, if every player was 4 million and Haaland is 12 million, you will say, okay, obviously I will pick the 4 million players over Haaland, even though they give me less points than Haaland, which we already know. But at what point gap, at what gap will you consider saying, okay, it's not Haaland, I have to go with these cheaper players?
You mean what price would Haaland like if Haaland was at a particular price point? Would I say that is enough? I'm not going to go in Haaland. Or you're
No,
saying
no.
the
Okay,
difference is
let's just
6 million
see.
or 8 million difference in price? If
Yes.
if Gabriel Jesus was about, let's say he's the one I'm going with, right?
Uh-huh.
Or let's say Nkunku, let's say 7.5
Uh-huh.
Nkunku, I'm
Yeah.
saying if he was around 6 million, and
Uh-huh.
most of these strikers like Gabriel Jesus is also 6 million, like really good strikers. Darwin Nunes is also six
Yeah.
million.
Yeah.
Definitely, I can get two players that are like 12 million,
With,
and then
uh-huh.
Haaland is just 14 million. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe like you might say, okay, Haaland is a good player, but man, if you go with two strikers that are top of their game and then the fixtures are good, I'm gonna go those two players over Haaland, 100%.
So you
Yeah,
so
it's not just one player. I think if you have two players that are cheap enough, that are still cheaper than Haaland's 14 million, that's a big
mhm.
gamble to take for me. It's a very good gamble to take. I'll take it.
Because if you look at it, like you are talking, you just say about 6 million. Let's say Ferguson, maybe he will not score a lot of points, but this is I'm expecting a lot from that kid.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
And Jesus, they are 14 million. They are having two of them is one Haaland.
Yep.
You're having Jesus and Ferguson, and then you can still consider your captaincy because there are times that Arsenal will play a good game. You can captain them. For me, this is where the thinking comes in. There are games I will say, okay, I have Salah. Oh, I have this other player. They can give me these points. But because I sell Haaland, I can get these players. And Jesus or Saka, I can captain him in this like that kind of thought. Like I'm not saying I'm gonna do it, but just to think about it. Some
Yeah,
people don't even think about that. All
yeah.
they
Some
do
people
is
think about it. Yeah.
Haaland is there. Let's go with Haaland. So you just
That's
to
the
think
thing. I
about
think
it.
that was the argument. Like what they want the game to be in such a way that we get you thinking. It's not about just choosing one player and sticking with the player.
Exactly.
there will be repercussions to having one player that expensive. So you have to think about, okay, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize owning this player because you don't want to think about other players? But then if you think about other players, all these combinations and permutations, that's what makes the game exciting. So I think they
Yeah,
should have made
yeah,
Haaland
yeah.
15 million or 16 million just to see what people will do. That would be really interesting. Because some people don't want
Yeah,
to think. Some people don't want to think about it. They just want to go, "Oh, he's the best player
and
last
do the
season.
easy thing.
Those goals, put him in." It doesn't matter how much he's going to cost. But if you put him in, he's going to like really have an effect on the players that you pick. You're probably going to pick like bench players all over the pitch. You know.